I guess I'll get specific. So I was listening to a podcast where Jackie Hill Perry, she's a wonderful woman in the faith. I've listened to her for years and years. She's written a lot of books. She's just like so wise and like genuinely just loves Jesus. And I admire her a lot. And she basically was talking about how she took 6 months off of social media. And whenever somebody talks about like, oh, I felt like the Lord is calling me to do this or that, that's like one of my triggers, just because I feel like, oh, now God's calling you to do this. And it's always just like, I can usually tell if it's from God or not based on like how it makes me feel, because it just immediately gave me all this anxiety, and not anxiety of the way that like, oh, God's calling you to do it and you don't want to do it. Although that's part of like the anxious thinking that I struggle with. It's like, oh, well, it's making you anxious just because you don't want to honor God and he's asking you to do this. But it's like, God never asked me to do it. Someone just started talking about it. And it made me think, oh my God, God's going to force me to do it. And it's just this whole like weird thing where I like almost forget the fact that I too have a relationship with God and I too can hear from him. And so it just started causing me all this anxiety over somebody else saying that God called them to do something, which I don't really know if anyone can relate to that. I feel like I've gotten messages of that stature before, talking about that. And in my OCD episode, I talked about that too, where I was like always having this like, don't know if it was the OCD episode or a few episodes after, where I was just talking about how like I would get all this anxiety that like I was going to be called to Africa. And it's like, God didn't call you to Africa. You're literally just having the thought like, am I going to have to go to Africa? Like, what are you talking about, basically? Like, my brain just plays all these tricks on me that causes me to be really anxious. And like, I've had God call me to things before that weren't necessarily fun or what I wanted to do, but there's like a peace that he gives you whenever he is calling you. And there are times in the Bible like where people are running away and they try to run away from like what God's calling them to do, and like Jonah and the whale and trying to get swallowed up by the whale and blah blah blah. You guys can obviously read about that, and I honestly don't know the exact story word for word to be able to talk to you guys about that, but basically where people are running away from like what God is calling them to do. And like I think that's a different thing, where like this is more so me making up that God's going to force me to do something, and then it causes me anxiety. And it's like, girl, why are you doing that to yourself?